Good evening. Wonderful. I think we are the last session of this India Omnichannel Forum. Save the best for the last. Right. So we had a very interesting conversation getting into this place, which was interrupted, saying that time up, people are expecting you there. So we said, okay, we'll continue the conversation as we get into the hall. Everyone talks about innovation nowadays. People have created innovation labs, people have created innovation departments. Enterprises look at how innovation can be embedded into the business. And guess what? I think innovation is a bad word. Do you agree? Who agrees with that statement? Nobody agrees. Do you agree? Because whatever you innovate today becomes tomorrow's operation. And we are already overloaded with operation. But then that was just to kind of provoke some thought in terms of what and how. The topic that we started off with was Internet of Things, IoT as everyone calls it, and what is the relevance of IoT in the retail industry. And then we said, IoT has been around for a long, long time, except probably it wasn't really called that. And has retail used it in the past? The answer is yes, in some ways or the other. I remember sometime in mid part of the last decade, the world's largest retailer said, every SKU needs to be tagged with an RFID. What happened as a result of that? There was chaos in the supply chain. The CIO got fired at the end of it, and everything went back to normal. On my panel here, we have an interesting mix of different kinds of retail and technology providers who believe that innovation is the way to move ahead, right? So let me start by asking retailers first. What is their view of the upcoming technologies, starting with IoT, and then we'll probably get into some of the other interesting discussions, which is not part of syllabus, but we'll do that also, right? So let me start with Ujjwal, who represents a wonderful channel called Shop CJ. And the first time I saw Shop CJ, I said, wow, this is interesting, because it appears to have created a new category in at least the country. While I had seen TV-based shopping in some of the Western markets happen much, much earlier, in India it wasn't really a big phenomena. And then suddenly there's a dedicated channel. So Ujjwal, what do you think about the current context in which the consumer is looking at Shop CJ? How have you scaled up? And what have been, at least, pick one innovation that you have done which probably had not happened somewhere else?
Well, thanks, Arun. Possibly I'll do a very quick round of what Shop CJ and who I am. I, of course, represent the technology wing of Shop CJ, which is a home shopping channel, the home shopping retail business out in India. It's a Korean organization which is Asia's #1 shopping channel across, and we are in India for the last 6 years. Essentially, the way you would recognize us is possibly find a channel called Shop CJ in your televisions, and we promote our products on the channel. We run a scroller which gives you a number where a customer is requested to call us up, and our call center in the back end picks up those calls and converts it into engagement with the customer. Thereafter is very similar to what e-commerce is today. It's the whole game about fulfillment, reaching out to customers far and wide across the country. So that's Shop CJ, right? Now, I personally come from retail with over 10 years in retail and roughly around 25 years now in IT. The very interesting challenge which I faced when I joined this organization a year back was while technologically television has been there for a very, very long time, but the essential thing which I realized in the form of retail that I was in is while it is still called a communication, a media of communication, but it really doesn't talk back or interactively talk with the consumer or the customer in our case, or a viewer as you would like to call it. So if I'm going to do business with or using a television, right, I need to have an ability to be able to interact with the customer, right? Now, essentially when we are talking about a pure play e-commerce, there are ways that you can click buttons and kind of interact digitally with the equipment, which is a computer, and also you can do it nowadays with a smart TV for a long time. But in my form of retail, there is no way that I can find out as yet that which customer is actually watching my channel. So if you think through, all of us when we view a channel, probably a company like ours never get to know whether you're viewing it or not. So what I'm trying to work out on is a way to be able to make my television smart. And the way I'm working, since Arun asked about are we doing anything around it? So what we're doing is we're working on a technology which actually embeds on the broadcast itself. And what it does is it communicates with your device, which is mobile, which is possibly nowadays all the time with you. Yeah? And when you're watching the television, it actually interacts with the mobile, helps me identify the customer in various ways. If I'm already an existing customer, it's much more easier. We can identify you there. If you're not, then we use this particular system, which has an ecosystem built around other apps which are there in the market. And if they are in those apps, well, for example, a lot of banking apps have now started adapting to this particular app. We're able to connect back to the customer. Moment the channel is built between the customer and the television, I can do a host of things. I can reach out to the customer at that point of time. I can facilitate one-click shopping experience for you. I can give flyers to you. I can give promotions to you, and so on and so forth. So this is one area, Arun, that we took for ourselves, because I believe that could be a very big game changer for us in terms of our connect with the customer.
So you're basically connecting the big screen with the small screen, right? You're connecting the big screen with the small screen and then hoping that the convergence will help you understand what your customer is finally likely to do.
Correct,
right?
correct.
And that's a very interesting, I would say, convergence of technologies that you're looking at. On the other side, if I go to physical stores, and Ranjan, help us understand, your customers are largely the youth who are always looking at the small screen. They rarely look at the big screen. And opportunities for you seem to be a lot more in terms of being able to engage with customers. Tell us about a few innovation or innovative things that you would have done in your stores right now.
Hi, this is Ranjan here. So there are a number of technologies that we've been working on. One of the biggest challenge in a format is it's a very, very young population. The target audience is very young. And they're very innovative. They know quite a bit about the product. They know fashion. They understand technology pretty much. So they're very tech savvy as well. They're pretty much high on social media. Now, we had a very, very strong connect with them in the social media space. But then how do you identify the customer when he's actually near my store? Or he's within the mall? Because that's the biggest opportunity you have to convert him. That's the biggest opportunity you have to actually sell him what he needs. Or maybe even guide him, because our stores don't have a sales assistant. We have a concept of a fashion consultant, because we believe still fashion needs to be explained to people to a great extent. Maybe people would understand fashion, but then you need to guide them in terms of what is a complete wardrobe for them, how does the whole thing syncs up with them, and then you have to create a complete attire for him. And The customer, yes, he might know to an extent, but he might not know everything. So how do you identify the customer while he's near to you? How do you engage with him? How are you able to give him send him a campaign? How are you able to connect with him and send him an offer as and when he's there in the store for something he might be needing, rather than doing a blanket offer for everyone and then losing across margin, which might not just make sense, because at the end of the day, you might even end up giving an offer to a customer who anyway would have bought that product from you. So at the end of the day, you've not been able to achieve your top line because the customer had anyway decided to buy that product, but now he's bought it at a lower price, which means you've lost on the opportunity on your top line as well as on the bottom line. So it's also about, with fashion becoming so competitive, it is also about how do you make your money out of the same customer, because the customer is going to shrink at some point of time. And then discounting is not going to excite people because there's so much of discounting anyway happening in the market because of e-commerce coming in. Every day you would see an ad from any of the marketplaces or e-commerce partners of a 50%, 40% discount. So that's not exciting to the customer. What is going to keep him interested is if you can offer him and give him an offer which can be incentivized in that same purchase while he's there in the store for something he actually needs, rather than trying to sell him something he might not even need. So that's a space that we have been trying to figure out. That's the space that we are trying to work on in terms of how do we connect with that customer, engage with him, and complete his entire buying journey, his shopping journey.
Interesting. And I know I have 2 kids who love shopping at your stores. One of the things they do, which probably I'm sure you know, but you have no way of getting inside, they go into the trial room, they put on a dress, they take a picture, and on WhatsApp it has gone out to their group of friends. Absolutely. It is not on Facebook or social media anymore. It's going to a closed group. And guess what? They're the responses they get back in few seconds. Looking good, not looking good. And that could be one opportunity. I don't know how you can do that. Maybe you need to spy into the thing. But having said that, next to you, Alan has some technologies where he talks about, I can tell you how many people are coming in. And I can tell you where are they inside your store. Having said that, your stores are slightly smaller as compared to some of the larger stores where probably dwell time inside the store will be a lot larger. But then having said that, I find my kids spend 2 to 3 hours in your store just trying to figure out which dresses to buy. So Alan, over to you. You've been talking about technologies where you can register number of people coming in, going out, spending time inside the store. How can that help retailers like him?
Okay. I didn't quite get the whole question. There's a lot of echo here, but I think I got the gist of it. Well, first of all, I admire your resilience because this is the last session, and hopefully we're not keeping you from dinner or beer or whatever you do. My name's Alan Thompson, and I work for a technology company based in the UK. It's a very innovative, high-tech company. We make thermal imaging devices which are used for counting footfall in retail establishments. And we're probably the biggest company in the world for intelligent footfall counting. A lot of our people are PhDs from Cambridge and Oxford, and as you can imagine with a thermal camera, it's quite a high-tech product. We make the entire device ourselves from raw materials, so we control our supply chain. And actually, it sounds very high-tech, sounds like very expensive. It's not particularly expensive. What do you use footfall counting for? Well, it's kind of interesting. A lot of, in fact, I did a session here last year and sat beside the guy from Google, and he talked about online shopping and offline shopping. Well, trust Google to come up with a phrase of offline, which is to us bricks and mortar. It's people walking into a shop. Well, if you're an online retailer, you know how many people come to your site. You know probably a lot more about them if you use Google Analytics. But it amazes me how many retailers don't even know the basics of how many people came into their shop. there's a lot of value in that information, especially if it's counted accurately. We're counting at sort of 98% accuracy. So you're actually then able to use that data in a meaningful way. So you can start to optimize your staff level. If your shop or if the products you sell need a lot of interaction with staff, then you can optimize staff levels by actually understanding when customers come to your store, whether it's at lunchtime or in the evening, just generally, it's empty during festival time, it's busy when there's not festivals on. So you can actually then start to optimize the staffing level to make sure that you've got that interaction, which is very important in a bricks and mortar sale where you're actually being, able to influence your customers' decisions. What else can you gain from this? Well, we can provide things like heat maps. So if you're on a shopping mall, you might want to know if 80% of the people that walk through the door turn right. If you've got multi-levels, how many people go upstairs? That can influence the decision on a retailer to rent their facilities and what you might want to charge them for it. So we gain a lot of information from footfall. We then move on to queue management systems where we can actually manage customers' expectations for checkouts. And one of the interesting things, I guess, in retail, and this is global, is that the majority of customers, their last experience in a retailer is with the cashier, the person that takes their money at the end of the day. If there's a big long queue of people waiting to pay for their goods, then it's not a very satisfactory experience for them. So they might not come back again. Equally, if the cashier is under pressure because there's a lot of people waiting in line, they might not be the happy, smiley cashier that you as retailers want to make the customers feel good about it. So we have products that can deal with that and assist the retailers if you use the data. You can get a lot of data nowadays and you can get paralyzed with too much information, but basic information of how many people come in and out of your shops is pretty basic stuff. We also have links with iBeacon, so we can do that as well. We have a question. Yeah.
Sure.
Hope I can hear it.
Ranjan will remember, I'm going back to our Big Bazaar days, my Big Bazaar days. One of the problems we used to face on big days was a huge amount of people coming in. And we would not know how to control the crowd. I mean, what would happen would be we would have to shut down the gates. And I think it still happens. So since you have some technology here, is it possible, using your technology, to streamline crowd management on days where we're expecting huge numbers? And so the stress on the checkouts, the sales personnel, we have to arrange special security on those days. So is it possible to do something with a little more predictive and maybe AI-based interface so these huge events can be managed?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question because there is no such thing as 100% accurate people counting product available. So the first thing is if you're managing the queues from a safety point, or the number of people from a safety point of view, then we suggest you make sure it's not a critical part of, say, an evacuation or something like that. Because the system is providing you with a lot of data, you build up a history over a period of time of when you get busy periods, etc. We do a very sophisticated system for supermarket chains where we we do a lot more than just count people. We're actually managing their queues. So, for instance, Kroger, which is the biggest grocery chain in the US, Tesco's in the UK, Morrison's in the UK, and a few other retailers have adopted our system where they actually manage the queues. Tesco started it 12 years ago, where they had a promise to their customer of 1+1. And basically what they said was that there would never be more than one person in front of you paying for groceries. So we developed a system which has built in a predictor, which is what you were asking for. So we can actually say to them that in half an hour's time, there will be a lot more people. You need to open up more checkouts to deliver on that promise. And we do that with very sophisticated algorithms, and that's why we have all these PhDs working for us. I don't know if that fully answers your question, but no.
I think, yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the solutions that we've been using at Bestseller is we put this device, it's a 3D imaging device, which is put on the entry as well as exit. So what I get out of it is, at any point of time, what is the count of customers who are already there in the store? You can use this data to be able to manage the queue outside, because when you say the big day, the biggest crowd management is outside the store rather than inside the store, in terms of how many people would allow to enter the store. It's a similar situation that we have on a Super Saturday. We have an event called Super Saturday, and that's a similar situation that we get into. We do it in 3 cities in the country, in Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore. In Mumbai, in the Linking Road store, we do that. And we get into a similar situation where we have almost about 500,000 people standing outside in the queue for 3 to 4 hours to enter the store. And how do you know how many people to allow to enter the store? Because if you don't know, because you know the capacity of the store, how many people can accommodate, and then basically it's the flow. So yes, there's an answer to it. You can definitely manage it. For sure, there are technologies to do it.
Yeah. So just to add to that, having shopped in some of the brands that you mentioned, Alan, their peak crowds are like our weekday crowds. Our weekend crowds, and especially when you talk about special occasions, like he's saying, it is unmanageable. And we have had scenarios like that. I used to be in the retail industry earlier. We opened a new store in a new town, the first mall in that town. Guess what? There were people queuing up from 9 o'clock in the morning when the mall opens at 11, just to get in. To get into our store, there was a queue which was half a mile long. And we had to do some similar restrictions. So we put 2 security guards with a walkie-talkie to say, okay, you count the number of people going in, you count the number of people going out. And there's a guy who's coordinating that to see how many people should be allowed next. Right? So
I have one further question about footfall management. Is this working? Yeah, okay. So a lot of large malls today, especially those that are above 500,000 square feet, are facing dead spaces where, the circulation just doesn't reach there. There's large areas where you can pretty much write off any kind of footfall, but you're spending on AC, you're spending on security, the whole thing has to be still run. As the return on investment for, say, a developer has to be maximized, can your system figure out through some kind of a predictive algorithm which days and which portions of the mall are likely to be completely dead and therefore can be reduced on cost?
I can give you an answer to that question. There are enough analytical models available today where you can use historical data to do some predictions. And we can take that conversation offline. I can help you with that, right? Thank you, Alan. I think moving on from there to Hemant, where while he has taken care of the people coming in, you're saying I have the ability to see where the person is going inside the store and then help the retailer in better shopping experiences. Tell us more about it.
Thanks, Ron. So I represent a startup called Bezirk. I head a startup called Bezirk, which is funded and internally funded by Bosch, focusing on diverse areas like retail and hospitality. So with respect to Arun's topic on internal location, so what we're doing is basically building a context-aware personalization solution, which translates to personalized targeted advertisements based on contexts like location, time of the day, for example, season, and based on user preferences. So how we do it, our internal solution, of course, we also support other solutions like beacons, but what we primarily are doing right now is we have a Wi-Fi fingerprinting method, which takes into account the store Wi-Fi, and then it builds a fingerprint for any particular area. And by an area, I mean a radius of around 3 to 5 meters, depending on the number of routers in the store. So it tells approximately in this area that a person has entered this area, which can also be like an aisle, between two aisles. So for a store owner or for a store person manager, what it means is an ad can be delivered which is relevant to the products kept in those aisles. So which means that, let's say on a hot summer day, someone is entering the aisle and is walking in front of a cool drink area. You can actually entice the person with an offer which he or she cannot resist by giving an offer on a cool drink. It can be a sponsored one where you have put beacons on certain particular cool drinks who are ready to pay you more. And as you're walking in front of them, you actually get an ad particular to that cool drink. Or in general, for any of those products with the Wi-Fi sensing method.
I find another technology which entices me to buy. And guess what is that? It's aromas. If you walk into In-Orbit
Definitely.
Mall in Malad, the first thing hits you is the smell of cookies. And guess what? You start feeling hungry,
Definitely, that's something which is coming up.
right?
So this, what do you call this, IPS, and the Wi-Fi thing? In what way will it, I mean, advertising is push, right? I'm thinking more about the new age customer who is more interested in engagement, okay? He is the one who wants to control. He wants to feel empowered. He wants to feel, or she wants to feel that they're in control of that experience. And they are making the choices. Of course, they are making the choices, but so my question to you is, have you thought of ways to engage that person? So for instance, can you detect his Facebook profile and connect with it? And maybe outside the trial rooms, you can have some kind of selfie posted automatically for every dress that or every dress a woman tries, or every shirt a man wants, and he can post it either on WhatsApp or Facebook. So something that technologically engages him and makes him feel good. So shopping in India is a very chaotic experience. So how do you make this customer feel better about his experience?
Yeah, definitely a very relevant question, because we at Bosch, we have been working on the augmented reality technologies, which very well fits for the apparel kind of industries, where, let's say the store does not have apparel, a particular clothing of all colors or all designs. So you keep a single color apparel, they take it, they put it on, and probably go to what you call a magic mirror. It actually changes the color, so you can also decide what color you want. On the other hand, it can also work with different kinds of clothing. For example, I have been having an interesting conversation today with one of the persons I met, where they work on ethnic wear. And what she said was quite interesting, that when you go for buying ethnic bridal wear, you don't want to really try out all the clothing because it's too heavy, it's too tiresome, and time consuming. So this works well in that, and this is under development, and I've seen a lot of startups also working on this solution. Yes, it is the future for apparel.
Indeed. In fact, 5 years back, there was a brand called Wet Seal in the US, which had put out cameras outside their trial rooms and said, click on this camera after you tried the dress, and we'll post your selfie to the Facebook. It obviously meant that the customer had to share a little more data as compared to what they were doing. It resulted in almost 11% lift in their sales at that point of time. Bhavik, you are in a very interesting situation where all of these guys are trying to get the customer into the store. You are saying, you don't have to go there. You can shop on your mobile. And I'm sure mall owners and brands will love you and hate you because you're helping them on both sides. How do you think your brand of innovation is going to be disruptive to some of the ideas that you're talking about?
I think so. So for us, I think, yeah, so I'm Bhavik. I'm representing a company called Preta. We are all about creating consumer experiences which improves their overall consumption patterns, improves the personalization bit, connects them back to the stores, brings them back to the stores, and at the same time keeps the convenience at the top of my priority. While saying so, because the scope of the discussion is more about futuristic IoT, which can primarily be brought back to the life, I think what keeps us excited is how big this space is going to be, right? There are close to 7 billion connected devices across the globe. This is more than even number of internet users itself, right? So we consider every single device, every single available opportunity of interaction as an experience bit for us. For us, we just imagining the power of IoT. Imagine the day I walk in from my house and my car knows that Bhavik is supposed to go to office and probably place an order for my coffee. By the time I reach the coffee shop, my coffees are ready. By the time I reach my office, and it knows that also birthday of my wife, so the gift order is already been placed. So I think it's going to be the world of connected devices. It will be a completely assisted life. We will not take our decisions ourselves. And this is the power of IoT. And this is not something which is hypothetical in nature. This is very much real. This is already happening. Amazon launched something called as Amazon Dash buttons, which are automatically identifying the levels of your consumption patterns, reordering, recurring consumptions. So for me, I think how technology will enable experiences, how technology will make it a completely assisted life for us is what keeps us very excited as Preta. We're observing it. We're trying to utilize most of it, but there are amount of investments, but I think it will penetrate very seamlessly because it's consumers who will have this power. They are having the devices. It's just, we at the back end, at the retail, at the technology guys, we're just enabling those devices. So at what point we enable, we do not enable is obviously a decision. But imagine, so obviously a small thing, right? If I want probably a differently able or a disabled person, probably with some disability to see, enters the mall. Now you know that he has entered, and probably you can give him an earphone. So he's standing at a counter. He exactly knows there's a shirt around him. So everything is probably audible to him. But at the same time, he's getting the shopping experience, which was not possible till date. So I think for us, the inspiration is how can we really utilize the power of technology, digital, physical web, make it personalized, make the decision-making possible, and overall improve the experience of the consumers. Right?
So here is some interesting points. One, in terms of what Amazon Dash enabled. Having said that, it was specific SKUs only that it currently has the ability to manage. But if you combine that with Alexa, then the possibilities are endless, right? Amongst the retailers here, have there been any interest, exploration, innovation, ideas that you would have explored around Internet of Things? Anyone at all? Or is it still something that you see in the future and not necessarily relevant to you right now?
So I have a question for Prexter, right? Okay. So I saw your presentation yesterday. You engaged with 100 brands, and you're looking at engaging more. And one of the comments yesterday was, how are brands perceived by consumers today? And it's like, it's more about what people are talking about the brand and what the brand is saying to you. Correct. So it's all about the buzz. And my question to you is, with the real-time social media like Twitter, how do you think this, the concept of a brand is going to evolve? And how will people engage with brands in the future?
So as I said, I think the future is more loyal than what we are today. I think, as I said, it's going to be much more personalized. It's going to be much more automated. So what are my friends talking about? What are the influencers talking about? How is the brand consumption pattern going on? It's all probably a very, very hygiene data available. And hence, probably the decisions which are more complicated are something which will rely on human, but the things which are, so when I see my screens, when I'm at stores, when I'm at digital interfaces, I would most of the time see things which or probably the systems or the assistants or the assistant staff already knows that I'm going to like. Because already knows that what my clients, what probably my friends are liking, what the influencers are talking about. And most of my experience would be so personalized, and I would really not need to go anywhere else to understand any of these data points.
No, I'm saying, you see, a brand is a brand only till people are unhappy with it. And I think that is where the ability of brands to respond to customers' grievances can become, much more automated and automatic. When you find that it certainly makes headlines when the Minister of Railways finds that there is a tweet about a girl being molested on a train and he sends the police there on the next station. I mean, that's customer service. And it's creating a kind of a currency, a social currency, which to my mind must be explored with a faster response system than what currently exists. I mean, I know that and certainly in big days and things like that, we find it very difficult to give customer service, and it leads to a lot of dissatisfaction. But with technology, it is possible to keep even dissatisfied customers engaged. And if it is possible to keep them engaged, it's also possible to satisfy them and therefore build your brand. So in that direction, so I'm talking more from a point of view of an irritated customer, a disgruntled customer, getting upset with something, is food expiry dates are missing or something. How do you envision? Because I can see, I'll give you a live example. I went to a friend of mine, asked him to sign up for a course, an online course. And he went on Glassdoor, and he said, I'm not going to do it. Because somebody else had a bad experience. Okay? So I'm saying, well, okay, how do you stop people from doing that? How do you stop bad reviews on Mouth Shut?
I think you can only stop it by serving it well.
No, I'm saying, but
it's a complete democratic world.
Using technology.
So I'll give you a small example. So Ola, so there's a friend of mine who probably tried to book a Ola cab for her daughter to go to a birthday party of a friend. And Ola didn't reach on time, and that girl missed the birthday party. Ola reorganized the birthday party next day to engage and delight that customer. So that's the power of tweet. This guy just tweeted saying, boss, my daughter is upset, and I'm not upset with Ola. And he said, okay, I'll turn it around. And there are various examples. The Domino's of the world would reach 30 minutes, probably at 35th minute, and the customers are reaching. And the Domino's just turned those tweets into happy customers by creating such experiences. It's all about delighting them. And once they're delighted, the same channel which probably created those offenses now can create a much more viral opportunity for you to market again.
And that is more related to the back-end process I don't think technology has a significant role to play there. It is about organization ethos which makes it happen. Coming back to the other thing that you talked about with respect to the visually challenged people who could experience something very different using beacons and variety of other technologies. It's definitely a very interesting use case. I don't think anyone has attempted that as yet. I think it's definitely an opportunity for some of the retailers here to look at what could be possibilities for some of similar use cases for creating customers which probably today are unable to get the experience that others are.
And one of the use case for the big days, probably we spoke about, is how do we find our kids and family once we are in? So probably.
Yes. So interestingly, all of us with our multiple digital devices are leaving breadcrumbs all over the place as we go through our journey. And the amount of data that we leave behind would surprise you. I was recently looking at one of the technologies which I installed as a plugin in my browser, and guess what? Within 5 minutes, I saw 47 sites actually looking at what I'm doing. I'm saying, wow, I didn't even know that. I visited only 2 sites, but within those 2 sites, there were 47 other sites which actually looked at, okay, Arun is now online and Arun is looking at the following things. And that's scary. Having said that, I want to turn back to retail again and say, okay, we started our discussion with saying, okay, what is the new disruptive technologies that you would be looking at? And IoT, of course, has interesting use cases with respect to some of the automated devices. For example, today the autonomous car is a fairly IoT-enabled transportation. People are talking about driverless Uber, which is already deployed in some markets. It will have a social impact. It will have an impact on existing businesses. When you start looking at the world of retail, what do you think could be a disruptive idea that could probably something that you need to watch out for? And I'm not just limiting myself to IoT now. What do you think could be the next disruptive idea that will threaten the way retail gets done right now? And it's open to all of you. Retail as we know it right now.
So
I said I'll ask difficult questions, right?
So I think the disruptions would not probably threat any existing business. So I think the world is moving toward collaborations. They have to coexist. Disruption should only enable businesses. So if they replace businesses, then they are probably trying to incentivize or probably create a temporary world. But as far as there's any innovation, any technology, yeah, replacement of businesses could be a replacement of technology, could be a different displacement. But in trade, in terms of broad trade from retail perspective, my gut is that every new innovation is will help you drive and try your business. I think the only disruption can be if you don't attempt it. If you as retailers stop thinking, stop doing, stop believing, is where you're gonna be losing the race. But if the businesses, if you're finding new ways to engage your customers, participate, collaborate, coexist, co-create, I think that's where we are.
Any other views?
So if you look at till last year, we were talking about how e-commerce is disrupting offline retail. And if you talk about today, I think most of the people would have even forgotten about that discussion because people have realized that it's all about coexistence that Bhavik said, and it's everyone has to coexist, and it's an ecosystem that all of this have to come together to deliver an experience to a customer rather than fighting the battle of an e-commerce or an offline store. And if you look at new thoughts, that Myntra, who was a pure play retail player, is now coming into an offline store. What does that say? That says that yes, there's a space for all kinds of businesses which is available. Yes, these disruptions can be temporary. Now, it is for us to actually jump onto that opportunity to be able to figure out how could we leverage that opportunity and how could we make things better? Because today what is important is the customer. All our solutions, all our thoughts, all our ideas have to circle around the customer and you have to figure out a way to give him that experience, that service level, that support to be able to understand him better and deliver him that service which he would keep coming back to you for, no matter which channel he comes from. So yes, the channel is no more important. It's all about, and these kind of disruptions will keep coming. I'm sure there will be more disruptions which will keep coming, but it's all about an opportunity. I feel these disruptions are more of opportunities than actually a disruption.
You had something to add?
So as we see, technology is slowly merging into the traditional retail industry. So there will be a space where it is physical versus online, okay? And unless both are merged together, some portion of this and that, companies which are in one of these will start tending to decline. So people who are in traditional should start absorbing online, and the other way around also, and that is what is traditionally happening right now. What I foresee is a dissolution of the ecosystem. For example, to understand what a customer wants, to understand the needs, to understand when a customer is satisfied, you need to know what is the life of that particular person. So that is the future for me. Of course, we are also working towards that, but to get into that mode where you have all the data about a person, what we call a digital avatar, is very tough, but that is where it is moving into. Of course, the customer privacy shouldn't be really taken out in this aspect. How can you, while protecting the customer privacy, also ensure that you are giving the right sort of advertisement, you are selling the right thing to the right person? That is what will be the future and the disruption, according to me.
I have a quick question.
See, talking about IoT and the way it kind of impacts a retailer, I would tend to feel, see, we all talk about customer engagement, right? Now, customer engagement is that much more easier when the customer is in front of you. Now, when the customer is not in front of you, how do you go about doing it? That's where we start thinking about technology. That's where we think about medium of connection and so on and so forth. So to me, IoT comes a big way there. Yeah? And I don't think that it limits us to understanding just the customer. Please do understand that the customer also wants to know more about the retailers also. And I'll tell you a very simple way, simple thing to understand is, once the customer is engaged with you, and more so in e-commerce perhaps, the next thing that the customer wants to know about you is, when are you going to deliver the product to him or her? Now, in that situation, what happens, what becomes important for the retailer is to create that connect with its backend, its supply chain, and its own stakeholders in the back in terms of even logistics. That's one more area where I believe that IoT could come to play a lot. There are solutions being talked about, but not too many that they are there where you can just plug and play and use. But one of the essential areas where I believe that it could come up very well is when the last mile delivery is happening. Essentially, most of the logistic partners nowadays are enabling themselves on internet and able to give visibility to the retailer in terms of where the product is at this point of time. In case you are servicing a remote place, essentially most of the e-commerce guys are talking about cutting down that delivery time and so on and so forth. And that confidence is ushered out by the logistics partners being able to give that information back to retailer. This we all know. Yeah? This is various degrees of perfection which is there. But what does also come up as a challenge is, and which is what I face a lot in terms of the field of business that we are in, because television reaches out much more homes than those that I can service. Yeah? So logistically, many of them have a lot of challenge. So what we're working on is, can we go closest to where we can to the customer? And the last mile becomes a challenge because there's no organized logistics provider who is able to do it the last mile everywhere. Now, in this kind of a situation, what we are doing here is we are trying to tie up with locals out there in those locations, those remote locations. Yeah? And for them to be able to interact with us, I believe IoT can help us a big way. Yeah? it's not essential that it is only the internet, technology that we use with a mobile, because with a mobile, we still have the limitation that, my last mile delivery guy can switch it off and play funny. But in case if I can find devices which can probably be, again, attached to their vehicles or something else, I'm sure we can do much better on this. And to come back to that original point, that's where the customer then expects us to be able to reach back to them and tell them and inform them as to where we stand, when are we going to get the delivery in. And that goes a long way in customer stickiness and retention also, apart from the fact that it gives you an ability to reach out to customers far and wide. That's what I think, Arun, in terms of IoTs, another set of applications which could see the day of light over a period of time.
So I kind of agree to some extent, where the choice of channel is finally determined by the customer, whether it's physical or online or mobile or television, kiosk, whatever that channel might be. And the convergence of channels is where the retailer has to put the customer at the center and then say, okay, how am I going to now service my customers? Having said that, all the retailers also work on something called the lifetime value of a customer, one of the things that every retailer loves to see. And recently when I was talking to one of the startups in the US, in Silicon Valley, they said the model on which they are working right now is a little flawed. And I asked them why. So they applied their algorithms and said, okay, let me take a sample database of a retailer, which they had access to. And they had calculated the value of this customer over the next 5 years to be $1,400, which was the conventional way of looking at the customer, how much is bought in the last 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and how much is the propensity to buy in the future. And when they ran their algorithm, it said the customer is going to actually spend $2,500. And saying, how did the change happen? And saying, what we have done there is a little differently. The way we analyze is not just based on past predictions. We're also looking at the life stages the customer is going through, the kind of upgrades the customer will potentially have based on demographic data of similar customers. And those are things that normally most of the analytical models would not look at. And these are deep learning models that people are applying today, which is a new technology again coming up and disrupting the way analytics actually happens today. Everyone also loves the fact that I have a social media connect with my customers. I have my app sitting on the customer's mobile. I have my customer carrying my loyalty card. So I have kind of surrounded the customer with everything that I can. Despite that, majority of retailers typically end up getting 25 to 30% of the wallet share of a customer. It's rarely going beyond that, irrespective of the kind of retail you look at or irrespective of the kind of categories you look at. Do you think any kind of technology could help you manage this? And I would also invite retailers sitting here to contribute to this kind of a discussion. KK, do you want to say something?
As the customer is evolving with the digital life, we are actually doing a catch-up. We are not able to really capture all the digital touch points and really mine and understand his needs better and really go deeper into his digital life actually. Today, it's a half-cut. I mean, most of the retail companies don't have a consolidated view of the journey of the customer because everybody agrees that he starts his purchase journey by researching on the web and then, but we are not really able to connect those dots actually. So a lot of efforts has to go in that area and the way the things are put together today is actually, today you are at the mercy of a Google or a Facebook or Apple or, I mean, those four entities actually hold the entire digital life of the customer. So they are building their own stone-walled area. So I'm looking forward to a disruption in that area, how our own digital life will get more democratized. There are technologies like blockchain and all in the horizon. So I'm hopeful that at least in the next 5 years, it will emerge and there will be more level playing field where it will be much easier to understand the complex digital life. And today, if you look at who's actually comfortable in living in the digital space, actually. So, as Shopper Stop, if you look at our target audience, maybe it is not really our target audience who is maybe the millennials or the generation Z is more comfortable. So, having said that, we need to catch them early. So, next 5 to 10 years, it will be more interesting. Actually, we have to think differently. We have to think differently. So, maybe this is the right time to set up systems and processes in place, and the way we do the marketing, digital marketing itself has to be rebooted, and we have to relook in a different way, actually.
Perfect. I think that sets the stage for the final comments from our panelists here. Think differently. What would you think differently for your consumer and your business in the next 5 years? What would you think differently for your consumers and your business in the next 5 years?
Differently in the consumer business would be, I would still look at anything which leads to customer satisfaction, anything which leads towards engagement, as he said, and to lead to a position where we get a lot of user surveys as well, talk to the customer and ask, what would you like, how would you like it if my store is there? What would you like? Do you want to be a part of designing certain things? So this could be certain things which would ensure that they're engaged. The most loyal customers, the most critical ones.
Anything to add?
Yeah, so I think in the fashion space, what is going to emerge out is how can we reduce the cycle of purchase for a customer. That's going to emerge big time. The other thing is also about there's a design element that we, from the merchandising perspective, we come up with, but then the customer might have some other thoughts. How could we involve him in that design phase? How could we customize the product, fashion product for him and deliver to him at the earliest possible time, the shortest possible time? I think that's going to become a big, big differentiator. That's going to change the whole of the fashion space. Because then the customer and especially our target audience, because he wants to be unique. He wants to be the first one to actually grab something.
Yep.
We are into a fast fashion space. He wants to show off that he was the first one to pick up that particular fashion. And how can he be different is going to be very, very important for him. And hence, he would also have a lot of understanding about the fashion, about some designing elements or something he might have just thought of. And then, how could he pick up something which is there on the ramp but still wearable? How could he convert that into a wearable fashion which could suit his body type, which could suit his way of dressing up?
Wonderful. Yep.
Agree with Ranjan. Primarily, I think it's going to be the pace of business. So it's about how Google calls it micro movements. It's not going to be any more decisive. So for us, it's not just think differently, it's think dynamically. So it's about capturing then and there.
So capturing the moment when it happens. Yes, Alan, any last comments?
Well, I guess the next 5 years, maybe we can see a lot more adoption by retailers of basic data, which is, from our point of view, knowing how many people are coming in and out of your store. As I said earlier, it's surprising how few retailers do that, and that's not just in India. That's around the world. So we see a huge potential for that basic information, because the big, I suppose, not being a retailer, but the big differentiator between online and offline, or going into a shop, is that you go into a shop to touch and feel the goods and to interact with the sales staff. And so if you can optimize that experience for a customer, then that will be a big difference to differentiate yourself.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I would like to close with one statement from Steve Jobs. The customer doesn't know what he or she wants. Thank you very much.